Welcome back to the channel. Thank y'all for hanging with me on this Sunday. So I just got off the water, had a decent day on a not so good fishing day. Slick, calm, sunny, no clouds with a thunderstorm that rolled in later in the day that didn't really affect us in a positive way because the fishing didn't get any better. It was a day all about slow moving baits on the bottom. So I was flipping, I was around a lot of cover, grass, coontail, and hydrilla, and I was flipping a 3/4 ounce tungsten jig. So I want my most natural presentation. That jig was shooting to the bottom super quick where those fish really couldn't get a good look at it, but it was enough to get their attention. And I was in rather clear water, so that also makes the bite even tougher. So there were a lot of factors there that weren't in my favor. Now, you hear a lot about it's all about the bait in the fall, and it is all about the bait, but I think the misconception is you think you got to catch them on baits that imitate the bait. So soft plastic jerk baits and flukes are great baits on days where they're feeding good. It's a good fishing day. You have clouds, maybe you have some wind, and you're seeing some fish maybe blowing up, or they're just biting those moving baits, and you can go and throw those. But on those days where you have slick, calm conditions, no wind at all, and you have pretty clear water, you have to fish something slow on the bottom. Now, if I could pick one or the other to find fish prior to the tournament or just go out there looking for them, as long as it's an efficient technique like flipping where you can cover a bunch of water, a slow moving bait on the bottom is always going to be my preferred method over a technique where you're winding something. Because techniques where you wind something, it's all about the retrieve. If you're doing the retrieve wrong, you might not get a bite. Maybe the cover you're fishing, if it's got too much wind on it. There's a lot of factors that go into those baits where they're subsurface and you're reeling them. Conditions being the most important. Slow moving baits on the bottom work better when the fishing gets worse. So you're going to catch them on those conditions, in all conditions. You're going to catch them on those baits rather in all conditions. But on those really tough days, slow moving baits work better than anything, and they always work good. So I think one thing about slow moving baits and any technique that involves that, as long as your bait is getting down to the bottom and you're letting it sit there for a second, it's probably going to work. It's not going to be too much more than that. Now, there are some ways to entice some extra bites, like stroking your bait up off the bottom. You can, sweep it and pop it and do all these things, but you're getting most of your bites when that bait is falling and it's just sitting there on the bottom. So there's no wrong way to fish a bottom bait. And I think any of those techniques, like flipping, for example, I get questions about that technique. Man, what do you do? It's kind of challenging, right? No, it's not really. As long as you are letting that bait get to the bottom, you have the correct weight on there so it can get down to the bottom, you're going to catch fish on that bait by just simply pitching it out there and letting it fall. So bottom baits, they always catch fish. They're way more consistent, like 5-to-1 on moving baits. And as fishing pressure accumulates, conditions get worse, the bottom slow moving techniques are always the ones that are going to prevail. And again, there's no wrong way to fish something on the bottom. So if you guys are struggling to catch fish, slow down, get you something that you can drag. If you have a ton of cover and you're just not catching fish out of it, you're overwhelmed by how much cover you have, pick up that jig, pick up that Texas rig, and just start pitching it around and let it sit there. Again, that question I always get about how to flip and how to pitch, man, there's no wrong way to do it. As long as your bait is landing without too much of a splash, but don't really worry about that a whole lot. As long as it's not a huge splash that could be scaring everything away, just pitch it in there, let it sink down to the bottom. It should fall straight down. If you're seeing it fall back towards the boat, you either need to put out more slack when that bait hits the water or go up to a heavier weight. It should fall straight. Play with the rate of fall. You want your bait to fall a little bit faster in clearer water. You want it to fall a little slower in dirtier water. Play with that. Lighten up your weight. Use a heavier weight. Change your line sizes. But again, they just bite baits that are on the bottom. So try that, guys. Good luck to you, and I'll see you on the water.